What if some of the greatest fundraising opportunities for nonprofits are sitting quietly in garages, driveways, brokerage accounts, and undeveloped land, while most organizations continue asking only for cash? Welcome to Money to Give with me, Rick Peck, the Philanthropy Guy. With over 20 years in the nonprofit sector, I've seen hundreds of millions of dollars transferred from donors to nonprofits. I've learned a lot along the way that I want to help convey to you, my loyal listeners. In this podcast series, we talk about 1, how nonprofits can most effectively showcase their mission and vision and raise as much money as possible. 2, how donors and potential donors can make the greatest impact possible in the world. And 3, how professional advisors, including philanthropy advisors, can offer the most up-to-date information and services to their clients. So join us here each episode for more of that giving feeling. Today's guest, Howard Pearl, of Charitable Adult Rides and Services, otherwise known as CARS, C-A-R-S, joins us for a fascinating conversation about the overlooked world of non-cash asset giving, from vehicles and real estate to collectibles, stocks, and even cryptocurrency. Howard shares powerful stories about donors, nonprofits, and the emotional connections people have to the assets they choose to give away. More importantly, he explains why nonprofits may be missing transformational gifts simply because they are afraid to ask or unsure how to receive them. This episode is about imagination, courage, and creating easier pathways for generosity. Let's begin. Well, Howard, I'm so happy to have you here. I feel like we could talk for hours, and I know that we only have, say, half an hour to 45 minutes, but I want to start by saying you are a master of your field in the world of non-cash assets, and I want to spend our time today talking about that. But I want to start by saying, what is your perception of non-cash assets out there? Tell me a little bit about what you see as being the opportunities and the problems in the world as it relates to those types of assets.
Well, first off, thank you very much. It's very flattering to be referred to as a master. Maybe a Lego master. I look around. We serve somewhere just south of 11,000 nonprofits, some of the largest brands in the country, and down to small 2-3 person Catholic charities or animal rescues. Pardon me. And I see in general people who are, one, way too conservative, two, they without a pejorative overtone, lack imagination because their boards generally lead them in a very conservative way. But I think if you're an executive director or CEO of a nonprofit, you not only have to use your imagination a little bit, but you have to have the courage of your conviction. And the reality is if you're out there, trying to get a $25 a month, subscription from somebody, or get a $250 donation, or even going after your big ones, going after, 25,000 or 750,000 or $1 million bequest, for heaven's sakes, you're missing the boat.
Yeah.
Everybody's out there asking for money. You're competing with 900,000 other nonprofits in this country.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a competitive world. And like you say, if you're doing the same things you've always done, which is asking for low dollar cash donations relative, as we both know, to what are usually ambitious goals, if they have very specific goals at a nonprofit, they're probably a lot higher than $10, $15, $20. They're probably more like a few $100,000, few $1 million, maybe tens of millions of dollars. So there seems to be this disconnect between what they're asking for in the form of cash and what's out there in the form of non-cash as far as the total dollars available. And so what you're speaking to, obviously, I'm a believer in what you do 100%, but I'm still in this day and age surprised that nonprofits are not more opportunistic. And the sad part is the donors and their professional advisors sometimes are also not aware, or maybe think that what we're talking about as far as donating non-cash assets is not possible. It's not available. Yeah.
We've returned, I think pretty close to 700 million to nonprofits.
Wow.
In the few years. I think close to 600 million just, during my tenure. Again, forgive the personal reference. It's not about self-aggrandizement. It's just how we've sort of grown.
Yeah.
And we've never taken in a single cash donation.
Wow, that's impressive. So, and you've been with, just to clarify for the group, for the audience, you've been doing this with the company for how long?
I've been here a little over 10 years. It was supposed to be a 45 to 60-day assignment.
Oh,
I was just going to do a bit of a turnaround, help to exit the previous CEO, and then replace him. I fell in love with the people that were here, and then I began to really sort of look and understand the mission, which I have to honestly say I didn't before I got here, and I was captivated by the whole concept and the value of what nonprofits do in this country,
yeah.
and how they do
Yeah.
it and why they do it. And as a guy who has run some fairly substantial businesses, a couple of publics, and worked on a couple of different continents, I thought this what an amazing opportunity as a career ender at my age, to come in and be of service, and still be able to run a fairly complex business. And so for me, the concept of acquiring or asking for and processing non-cash assets just seems to be one of the most logical things in the world. And people don't want to do that because, well, look, I understand why they don't want. It's difficult. It's frustrating. So many things can go wrong. Where do you store these things? Where do you park them if you're talking vehicles? I mean, again, we've done everything from liquidate business jets, for heaven's sakes, to e-bikes. Where do you do with it? How do you handle these things? Real estate. Oh my God, the things that can go wrong with real estate, the lawsuits, the insurances, the taxes, the weather-related issues. What you really need to do is go out there and find somebody that's an expert to do it. There are people out here who handle non-cash assets. Some of us broader than others. In other words, we don't specifically say we just do real estate. I think the systems that are available to us today, the software that's available to us today, the expert counsel that's available to us today means that you no longer have to be single product, deep as the ocean. You can be as deep as you want to be across the board on all of these. And over the last 20 years, over the last 10 years more specifically, we have learned ways to accept real estate donations on behalf of nonprofits that put them in a position where they never have a minute of liability. They don't have to worry about any of those things anymore. We're specialists at it. We solve the problems. Even with our vehicle donations, for heaven's sakes, right down to and including, we'll get a call from somebody who donated a car 5 years ago, and they say, I just got this bill for a toll that somebody went through with my vehicle, but I donated it 5 years ago. Well, we go to the trouble to handling what they call the release of liability. So we tell them, I don't care if it's 10 years later or 20 years later, you get a problem like this, you just call and we'll deal with it. We have a resolution department that is specifically trained and geared to find out what the issue is and resolve it. And up to and including, we'll go to the courts to have these people released from these problems, because legally we make sure that what happens along the way is marginalizes and negates any liability. And that's the way it is in this country. Once you give up your asset to somebody, you're no longer responsible for what they do with it. And that's pretty much what it is. So these days, we're managing roundup programs for credit cards, but really very tailored to each organization, called Minute to Give. We're doing real estate. We're doing vehicles. Again, we do about 10,000 vehicles a month. So a lot of those. And many of those are specialty items. We don't ask for junk, so we don't get it. We're getting good average sales price. But right from the go, we call your donor. We express gratitude on your behalf. Nobody knows who we are. We're representing your nonprofit. We send properly trained people to pick the vehicle up, put it in the back of a tow truck, and get it into an auction as quickly as possible. Put a little, powder on it to clean it up, and so we get the highest value. We're also accepting stocks, bonds, that sort of stuff, crypto. We're about to start crypto. We haven't done crypto yet, but we're there with the same people that work with us on liquidating the stocks. They're sort of very heavily into crypto at this point, so and so on. Um, we're moving into some AI products to make those available to nonprofits so that they. The point I'm trying to make is, look, I have a board. It's a very conservative board. They probably represent very similar ideals as many nonprofits, which is, look, we're here to make sure that you're accountable and that everything is done, correctly and with file and the audits are done and so on. And I absolutely 100% agree with that. But as a nonprofit leader, I think you are tasked with a little imagination, which is to grow it. And it's not as hard as people, are making, making it out to be some days. It's a struggle. Of course it is. We're asking people to give us their things, but you need to inspire them. And the way you inspire them is making it easy, making it so easy so that when you go to them and say, look, we'll take care of this real estate for you, it's a joy because they have a lot of work to do. Find somebody like, of course, I prefer it's us, but there are other organizations out there like us who will handle your non-cash assets, for reasonable fees. And it's worth it because anytime you're adding revenue and can convert an asset to cash on behalf of somebody else, depending on what it is, they end up in a better position. You don't need a home that's been assessed at $1.2 million. You bought a cottage 35 years ago. Maybe you paid, $25,000, $35,000 for a piece of property. You put a small cabin on it, right? But over the last 35 years, as your family grew, you had an extension, and then the municipality moved out, and all of a sudden, now the thing is still on septic, but it's got running water and it's winterized, and all of a sudden now the thing is worth $1.2 million because the neighborhood is growing up, right? So you get your tax situation appropriate to whatever your situation is for the $1.2 million that it's assessed by a credible, a government accepted assessment of the property value. And whatever it costs you to sell it, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, your nonprofit is getting high six figures, or even seven figures, and it solves a problem for them, or they wouldn't be giving it away. So, and I've seen some really unusual situations. Man has 4 kids. They're fighting over who's going to get the thing. He finally says, "Look, I'm not going to have this tear the family apart, folks. I'm donating to my local public media partner. I'm donating to Shrine. I'm donating to St. Jude. I'm donating to my church, whatever." And at the end of the day, it's usually a guy who's about to start digging into his IRAs or his 401ks, and so he could use a little bit of a support there in the tax. And in one particular case, this was what it was. He wanted it sold quickly. We got 800,000 for the property. It was assessed at $1.2 million. We got 800, like within a very short period of time. And he said, "Look, I need 200,000 of that." We're happy to peel that off. He pays regular income on the 200 that he took. So, to curiosity, I said, what are you going to do with the 200? It's a lot of money. And he said, I don't want to be unkind to my kids, so I'm going to give them each $25,000 and say that's your share of what this thing was worth, but I'm not going to let it tear you apart by beating up on your little sister who wants it and can't afford it, and so on and so on. So I've resolved that problem. And he said, in the 100, well, to be honest, for the last 40 years, I've been promising to take my wife on a cruise around the world, and guess what? I'm using this money to do that.
Wow, sounds like he nailed it on every level. He had some personal satisfaction, gave something to his kids, and was also charitable with it as well. So,
well, and we help him to get there. One of the things we really specialize in, we're very fortunate. We are allowed and encouraged to talk to the donors. And I think you'll probably find other organizations that are similar to us, do the same. We're happy to chat with your donor, with your gift officer, online with us, or in many cases, people that we've been working with for many, many, many years, they they've learned to just leave us with the donor, even their high net worth donors. We're very experienced at it. Everybody in this organization has to read the book, The Gratitude Diaries by Janice Kaplan, before they can even come to work
All
here,
right.
because our job is expressing gratitude on your behalf.
Right. Wow. Well, that's amazing. And obviously an amazing culture that you have there. Just bring me up maybe 30,000 feet. So as long as you've been there, tell me some trends that you've been seeing. Maybe if you want to pick a lane like, cars or real estate or something, just kind of go deep on that particular asset. And then maybe later I'll ask you a little bit about how nonprofits can be more present, I guess, in the non-cash asset space. But anyway, just pick a lane, pick trends that you've seen or certain assets that you're just sort of like, wow. I mean, you just mentioned real estate growing in value, but I'm just thinking in terms of opportunistically, people have these assets and they want to do something with them. So what do they do?
Well, look, I'll start with the big one for us. I like talking about cars.
Okay.
I'm a car guy, and we discovered when I got here, they just kept adding clients. They kept adding people, and I said, "Well, hang on a second. This isn't the way it should be. Stop taking new clients. We're going to stop taking partners." And the few people that were here, it was a small organization, they looked at me like I was out of my mind. I said, "Look, there are 100 bakeries out there, but then there's the one you go to when you're having guests.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I'll stop and pick up a croissant at Starbucks, but when the mother-in-law is coming, I go down to the German bakery or the French bakery, and I get croissant.
Right. Right. Or you're having a party or exactly. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I like to think of ourselves as the bakery that makes the croissant.
Yeah.
The, why? Because a lot of people will accept car donations. I mean, there are people out there that do it, but they take whatever comes along. We one will very rarely refuse one. We have enough money in our budget that if we get one we're going to lose money on, and we have a long-time client or partner. For us, the most important part of the equation, right, and this is critical, isn't the car donation. It's the donor.
Right. It's the relationship.
It's always going to be about the donor, right? What's the lifelong value of the donor? So we go one step further with the donor. We do donor search on every single donor, and we turn those reports over to the nonprofit we're working for. So, for example, if you've got somebody who is maybe donated a vehicle to you, and we sold that thing for, I don't know, whatever we sold it for, $3,000 or $1,800, doesn't matter. And the donor search comes back, and the guy gave, $75,000 to the local symphony last year. Maybe you should be calling on this guy, and so on. So again, if you work with a specialty organization, they'll do all these extra things. So we ask for quality vehicles. We don't ask for junk. We don't ask for clunkers. We ask for your better off vehicles. And so our average sale price is higher than most. And then we started to notice, that we're at that point where there's a lot of collectibles out there now. We guys your age and my age, and we've built these wonderful, hot rods, or we've converted 57 Chevs, or the 1969 Impala, with the big block and so on. We've been asking for those. So, and then we go to places that you wouldn't expect, right? You go to Kelly Blue Book, and you'll find a donate button there. When you donate, we push that donate button, it brings us to our website where you can pick by geographically or by subject matter or by vertical, right? So I want to find an animal rescue in Poughkeepsie. Okay, and we probably have one. Or I want a children's hospital in Pasadena or wherever. So for us, we've learned to refine this. And I said, we're not going to add any more clients until we can learn how to market these things and get the most money. So it was unreasonable to expect that, we had a couple of guys, drawing pictures, and that they called that the marketing department. That wasn't a marketing department. So we, over the years, have built a full-time 11-person marketing department that writes communications, produces animations, produces television, produces radio stuff, puts it in the content portal, And as a partner, you can go in there and take whatever it is you need. And your account manager watches your numbers. If your numbers go down, they'll pick up the phone and say, "What's going on? What aren't you doing this month that you did last month when you got great vehicles?" So it's the point is that it's not about what you're asking for. It's what you do with what you're asking for, how you manage the donor, and what your relationship with your partner is. With your
Yeah. Sounds like you're both involved in success. You're both interested in what success looks like, and you're really looking at it from their point of view and seeing what the opportunities are in the best possible way.
Absolutely. You got to get a tow truck to somebody's yard within 2-3 days, or somebody else is going to get the vehicle.
Yeah. Or it's not going to go at all. No one's going to bring it, right?
Well, that's right. Or somebody will come along and buy it, and you'll lose the opportunity to serve your market.
Right.
Which is terrific. And there's a ton of issues. There's a ton of issues that go along, problems that come up with vehicle donations, and some, the tow truck backed over the cat, car slipped off the back of the tow truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy picked up my Porsche, but I noticed in the picture it had different wheels and tires. The guy stopped at home and swapped them, for worse tires. They put the new ones on. So, the myriad of things. I mean, one of the more amusing things, that I don't want to say which state it was in, but there was a particular state. A lady looked out her kitchen window, and one of the drivers was, looking at avoiding himself in between the two homes. I mean, so you've got to have a sense of humor as well. You've got to reach out and deal with this. But the point is, there's money in asset, whether it's vehicles, whether it's real estate, whether it's atypical, whether it's jewelry, whatever it is. Don't be afraid to try it. We've grown because we found some bad actors in our industry, and we either chased them away or went out and bought them.
Oh, okay. And eliminated the bad actors and made it so that it's back to the relationship and doing good work. So interesting.
Yeah, that's really the point, right?
Yeah.
You have to maintain your industry's credibility, and if you're not prepared to police it, nobody will.
Right. So give me a before and after. All right. So I'm a nonprofit, and I don't know anything about cars. I've never really done anything to do with non-cash asset promotions. But then I meet cars, I meet you, and tell me what I'm going to be doing differently now. If I'm assuming my board's all on board with this whole idea, and the staff's on board, everybody's ready to make a change, what would turning the corner look like?
Well, I think probably the toughest thing you have to do is sign the contract, which has no financial liability. It is an exclusive contract because we don't want to be competing with two people given the same asset. It's just that you just run into problems. You end up having to solve somebody else's problems. You have to give us, your ACH information so we can send you money. And that's about it. You have to have somebody in your organization that's going to be the champion, which is just somebody that we can contact and stay in touch with. We will provide you with 100% of your marketing material. If you want to run an offsite program, usually you start with your mailing list and you email this stuff, and then as you burn through that portion of your market, then we usually like to start you on a pay-per-click program. We will manage that program for you. We will buy that media for you. We don't pay for that media, but we do everything else but that. We'll buy it. We'll monitor it. We'll see what the reciprocals are and adjust the program accordingly so that you end up with the maximum amount of money. Our job is to protect the donor, make sure that the donor gets the best possible service and you get the most amount of money, period. And more importantly, we have a staff here that will resolve anything. We got 3 full-time people in the title department that manage these issues. We have relationships with the DMVs in all 50 states. And we have very solid relationships with many of the national title companies, Chicago being one of the, Chicago Title being one of the bigger ones. So we've developed relationships over the years, right? And all these other unique things that we dispose of, and even the Minute to Give program, the Roundup program for for credit cards. It's so articulate. You can change things literally. It's called minute to give because it takes a minute to change anything. If you have to stop it, if you want to increase it, if you want to, pardon me, manipulate it in any way, shape, or form, reassign it. It takes nothing to do all that. The idea is to make this as simple and as hassle-free as possible. With real estate, you never have a minute of liability. With stocks, well, that's pretty heavily regulated. You give us the stock, we have a very short period of time to turn it around. And so we work with people that understand that and move it very quickly.
Right. Yeah, that's great. What about, okay, so you're helping the nonprofits market this out, which is great. Are you also, as CARS, marketing to donors independent of nonprofits? And is CARS also marketing to CPAs, wealth advisors, trust and estates attorneys as an independent type of initiative? Because obviously a nonprofit will say, we accept non-cash assets, but I'm just wondering if it can also be done on the other side, which is the donor or the professional advisor is also initiating the non-cash asset donation to a nonprofit. I was just wondering how you're marketing as a company.
Okay, what we don't do, we don't have any donors that are unique to us. The only donors we have are yours. We don't mingle them with anybody else's. We never, ever solicit them for anything, not even for you. However, we will provide you with the material so that you may solicit them. Many people donate to us. They don't even know that they've been talking to us. That's that donor base is yours, and we clearly respect that. Now, we do solicit people that are in the real estate business, CPAs, other organizations that manage assets for people, DAFs, and so on. When some of our nonprofits are looking at a large bequest, we recommend that they actually donate the vehicle, either into a trust or the real estate, so that you don't have the problem of, oh, yeah, well, yeah, Dad wanted to donate that, to Mother Superior of our farm of nice, gentle lambs, but you never cared about the religion, and therefore you're going to contest, and so it gets tied up for a long time. We've all had those experiences. We resolve all that. We make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen. So yes, we do deal with a myriad of other organizations that represent us, and they say you're going to donate this thing, then we get involved. And the next step is, if you're the donor, Rick, we're going to say, well, here's a list of thousands of nonprofit. What are you interested in? Children's charities, children's health, adult health, cancer and breast cancer. Oh, you had your mother died of breast. Why don't we give it to one of the breast cancer organizations? UCBF that does a great job, or Coleman. They're all ours. Which one strikes a chord with you? Again, we want to make it so that your donor is being served to the best of the ability of of the industry. Why? We want them to come back, and more importantly, we want them to tell their neighbors. So yes, we do solicit organizations, but we don't solicit your donors ever. That is, from my perspective, the single biggest breach of trust, other than just outright stealing money.
I appreciate the differentiation. I think I'm more of my purpose of my question was more about, like, how are we making sure that as many parties as possible know that donating non-cash assets is an opportunity. But I appreciate the fact that you are being protective of the fact that you're not going after those people. You're going through organizations that might be able to introduce the idea. All right. Yeah. So, all right. Now I'm going to put a hat on, like I'm going to pretend I'm an executive director. Okay. So
in that case, I'll just change the direction I'm seeking.
And so I meet Howard and I say, Howard, I'm totally on board with what you're saying. Oh my gosh, there's so much opportunity out there. But my board, they're really struggling with this idea, or, I think I'm going to have to move mountains to get them to comply. If I were to bring Howard in for a presentation, what would Howard say?
Well, Howard would begin with the first question. What's your biggest fear exactly?
As to the board, you would ask them, what's your biggest fear? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to move forward on this. And the question is, what's the fear? Let us explain to you why, in our case, again, almost 11,000 other people have jumped into this, some of them for many, 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 many years, and organizations that you respect. Again, Red Cross, St. Jude, Rady's Children's Hospital, Dana-Farber, if you're in the East, UCBF, name them. It doesn't matter. Your local NPR station, even if you're a conservative, the fact is you hear their you hear their ads. We're not the guys out there with that with the obnoxious jingle. You know, we can give you thousands of references and in your space. So what you really need to explain to me is, what is your fear? Why is it? I don't hear you saying no. What I don't hear is you saying yes. So the question is, what's preventing you from saying yes? I think we can give you a responsible answer. We have no history of liability here. We have no history of litigation. We have no history of any organization that's been involved with this category of donation, or specifically our organization, that would give you pause. At the end of the day, we're a nonprofit organization just like you are. We recognize the challenges that you have. We're owned by a 110-year-old nonprofit that hasn't had a single issue in all those years, and we only deal with nonprofits. So we've seen every problem you're going to see. We've seen, and we've managed to negate or mitigate. So what again is the concern for moving forward? Unless you have a specific medical allergy to free money, there's no reason why you wouldn't proceed.
Right. I think, as you're talking, the only thing I can imagine a few of them saying is, well, we don't know any other nonprofits locally that do this.
Perfect.
It's a little scary. Perfect. Yeah, exactly. No competition, right?
No competition.
Or they might say, we're just, it's just, you already said it, Howard, but we thought we would have to process these gifts and we don't. Okay.
And nobody's going to bring these cars down and park them in your parking lot. We tow them from the home, and they go to a local auction yard. We deal with over 300 of them. I assure you, there's some in the neighborhood wherever you're working. And you say you don't know any local organizations that are actually dealing with this. Have you ever heard of the Red Cross?
Yes, of course.
Have you ever heard of Susan G. Komen?
Yes.
Well, they're not only your neighbors, but they're our clients, and we pick vehicles up in this neighborhood and we move them to the local yards. So we are supplementing your local community's economy as well.
Wow. And I suppose you could also say to them, why don't you go to their website, and you could see what the process would look like if you were a donor to Susan G. Komen or Red Cross, and you could see how seamless it is. Back to your point earlier around making it easy to do it, they could see that the process is pretty straightforward, and saying, well, that you could have that same interface if you worked with us, because again, our goal, your goal, is to make it as easy as possible without providing any liability to the institution, but then getting that, as you say, free money in that otherwise they wouldn't be able to be getting in.
Exactly. It is that simple. I think probably the biggest challenge we have is overcoming the fact that it is that easy. People think it's complex. There's liability. Oh, maybe you're going to annoy a donor. Somebody's going to get angry because it won't go well. Well, I'm sorry. You walk into McDonald's and occasionally, they don't bring you the right burger. Things happen. And I think the proof is in the pudding. What happens when something doesn't go well? Are we here to stand behind it? I can give you hundreds of references, not that we've had hundreds of things go wrong. What I can provide for you are circumstances where things, beyond our control, the car slips off a tow truck, that sort of thing. Not only are we properly covered with insurance, but so are the towers and so on. The point is, we don't turn and run when things go bad. Oh, that's not true. We do turn and run, but we turn and run to you, not away from you.
I see. That's an excellent point. It means that you've seen a lot of things go badly, but it's almost like the positives outweigh the negatives. Anything can have a side effect or something go sideways. But the point is like you said, we've done it before. We continue to do it. All the issues that we've seen aren't keeping us from wanting to continue to do more. And as you were saying, like, there's other frontiers to go forward to, like cryptocurrency. And before we started recording, you were mentioning like life insurance cash value and certain things that just feel like these are other types of non-cash assets that we could also be leaning into. And yeah, we might make a few mistakes along the way, but chances are we'll probably do a lot of things right and we'll learn from those. And then we'll also be able to tell the general public, here are some things we can do to make this as frictionless as possible. If you come to the table and have all these things ready, that's going to make it a lot easier. Here's what we're going to do on our side to make it as easy as possible. So hopefully it ends up feeling like it was something you'd do again.
Exactly. And you don't even, and you as in the nonprofit, don't even have to worry about that, because they're going to either be on the line talking to somebody live in our call center, or they're going to go online to the donation page that hooks up to your website, which we will build for you, or they'll use the 800 number that is designed for you. We have thousands of those. We can mix and match. And so we're going to have that conversation with the donor. Right? When they go to your website and they click, I want to donate, it just comes to us.
Right.
And so we have knowledgeable people all over the country that are answering these calls. Our average, we just had a celebration. I was sort of stunned. Our average length of employee here is running on about 10 years. But what really surprised me is that the average length of our donor reception agents is over 5 years.
Wow, that's great.
We don't have scripts, and we don't time them. If Jesse's mom wants to sit on the phone and talk about her bunions, now it's a problem she does every day. But if in the process of donating her car, she's lonely because it's her husband's car and he passed away 2 years ago, she's finally getting rid of it. I will end up, as a result of that, getting you stories that will help you to get more donations. Perfect example. We had a woman up in Oregon gave us a vehicle. It was a 1926 Dodge Brothers car.
Wow.
We picked it up, came down to the yard. We brought it down to one of our specialty yards in Sacramento, and they rolled it in. And the guys were so intrigued by it. They said, you know what, we're going to get this thing running. It's nothing more really than it's a lawnmower motor, basically, right? So we're going to get this thing running. So we got it running, and the guys were dancing up and down, jumping up and down. So the GM up there said, you know what? Let's take this thing for a drive. So they took it for a little bit of a ride. Imagine a dealer plate on this thing. Anyway, took it for a ride and videoed the driving and so on and all the sounds. And we sent it off to the widow. And she called us up in tears and said, the last time I heard that sound, I was driving in that car with my husband. You cannot believe how happy this has made me and how many wonderful memories it's brought back.
Wow.
I just thought we'd seen the last of it. It was gone, and have a nice day. But you've turned this into an incredible experience for me.
Wow. That's really special.
And I think that's what we try to do. You can't do them with everyone, but the point is, we don't miss an opportunity to make it special. People in America have a relationship with their vehicles. They have a relationship with their home. They name them, for God's sake.
Right.
And so, one of these days, I think I'm going to publish a coffee table book with some of the stories. I'm reminded of a couple that they were having their first child. They were in a minivan, and they got to the corner. I don't remember the corner walk and don't walk. It was late at night and dark, and she said, I need help. We're not going to make it to the hospital. She got in the back of the car and she was about to deliver their first child. Fortunately, there was a cop saw them, on a dark corner late at night, stop and thought, well, this is interesting. Went over, realized what was happening, helped deliver the baby.
Wow.
Right? Which is terrific, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's not where the story ends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, years later, they're donating the vehicle and they're telling me the story. And they're saying it's hard for us to give this thing up, but it's done. Right. We need it. Why? Well, she was pregnant again and was delivering her second child, and they had their go bag, and this time they were going to make it. They got to the same intersection.
Same thing.
Out came number two. It must have been some kind of fiber optic energy or something.
Wow.
I don't know what, but got to the same corner and out came number two.
Wow.
So it was hard for them to give the vehicle up, but that's basically their delivery model.
Yeah, wow, that's so funny. Wow, no question that coffee table book would be amazing. And I think also what you're speaking to is the fact that that asset meant something to them, and then they're going to
Yes,
take it and they're actually going to make it mean something in a different form to an institution that they
somebody
care
else.
about. Yeah, exactly.
That's correct.
Right.
And whether it's a home or a piece of undeveloped land, there was something you were going to do with that land, and maybe you didn't realize your dream on that, but somebody else will. And you're helping to facilitate that because maybe they're going to get it for just a little bit less if it goes for a quick auction, and the nonprofit wins, you win, they win. It's incredible, right? Or what are you doing sitting around with an insurance policy that you no longer need, right? You're financially secure. You don't necessarily need to get that cash back or get the tax credit so that you're taking advantage of money that you put into your other tax protected savings, and this way you're getting it at the value you put it in at, as opposed to current value, which is less. I think I don't care what it is. Um, we get the strangest calls for things. People give things to DAV, Disabled Vets, one of the largest vet organizations. We've been doing them for years. They get a lot of real estate. A lot of these older guys, Second World War vets, are moving on, unfortunately, and we're losing them. And they don't have families, or they don't have families that they want to give this stuff to. They want to give it to an organization, that's helped them with their challenges their entire life. You know, um, you've got stuff sitting in your DAF and you got to do something with it. Let us turn that into, value, not just for you, but where you can have the pride of having given it to somebody that can repurpose it in a meaningful way. So what are we saying here, really? You're doing not just your constituents, you're not doing your nonprofit anything but a disservice by not accepting non-cash assets. And you don't have to be an expert. Find somebody like us. And if we don't feel that we're the right mix for you, we'll identify people who, maybe specialize in something else. But we find ways to liquidate just about anything.
Yeah, I love your customer service approach. Thank you for sharing those stories. And as you say, there's an opportunity on each side. The nonprofits need the money and they want to make that impact. And the donors have these assets that meant a lot to them and they're looking to find a good home for them. Maybe a tax deduction along the way, but mostly trying to make sure that they're making impact and you're the bridge in between. You make it all happen in between. So thank you for all that,
Yeah.
Howard. And thank you for all that you've done. And thank you to your whole staff and everybody who dedicates so much time and energy into making people feel special and that they do want to come back and do this. So how would people find you or how would they find cars?
Well, before I say that, because that's sort of our parting message,
Yeah.
I want to tell you that it is a privilege to do this job. Um, Anytime you can find yourself in a situation where you can be of service, the rewards are extraordinary. Um, we're here. We're here to help. We're here to see the community flourishes. And that's that. So our website is, careasy.org, careasy.org. And when you get there, you'll find the Giving Realty page. You'll find the On the Go page, which is for transportation. You'll find the car donation space. And if you want to inquire about doing business with us, you can drop us an email. I'm easy to find. At area code 858-300-2902. Or even better still, drop me an email at howardp@careasy.org, HOWARDP @careasy.org, and I will pass it along to the appropriate folks. I'm sure we've got about 200 people working around here. I'm sure we can find the right one for you, no matter where you are in the country. I promise you a painless and successful relationship. That's what we're committed to.
Well, I applaud you. As most people who listen to Money to Give know, I am a huge advocate for non-cash assets. And when I met you, I felt like, wow, here we go. This is a guy who we got to have on the program, and he's going to talk about things as you have that are just hopefully really resonating with this audience. So thank you for everything. And you're always welcome to come back, Howard, and tell other stories either about non-cash asset donations, but I also know there's lots of other things you work on. You've worked on mergers in the past. You've worked on a bunch of different things around mission-centered work. So that's a whole other conversation, and you're always welcome to come back and have that conversation.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I will appreciate the opportunity to come back and just, as they say, chew the fat about anything that's on your mind.
Well, I appreciate that. All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
That wraps up today's conversation with Howard Pearl, and I hope it encourages nonprofits, donors, and advisors alike to think more creatively about what philanthropy can look like. Here are 3 key takeaways from today's discussion. First, nonprofits may be overlooking enormous opportunities by focusing almost exclusively on cash gifts. Vehicles, real estate, securities, and other appreciated assets can unlock transformational funding. Second, donors often have deep emotional connections to the assets they give. As Howard shared so beautifully, these gifts are not just transactions, they are stories, memories, and legacies. And third, nonprofits do not have to become experts overnight. By partnering with experienced organizations, they can accept non-cash gifts responsibly, safely, and in ways that create meaningful impact for everyone involved. As you reflect on today's episode, ask yourself, what opportunities might be missing simply because we have not yet imagined them? Thanks for listening to Money to Give. If this conversation resonated with you, please leave a review on your preferred streaming platform, share it with a friend or colleague, and most importantly, keep that giving feeling going. We are now broadcasting in 37 countries and growing, with 500 downloads per month and nearly 10,000 downloads to date. A reminder, this podcast is meant to be for educational purposes only. For specific advice related to your own situation, please consult an attorney, financial advisor, CPA, or other type of trusted consultant. If you're looking for fresh insights on how to give smarter, raise more money, and advise your clients in a more informed way, please subscribe to my weekly newsletter, Charitable Giving News for You. Register by going to my website, thephilanthropyguide.com. In the newsletter, you'll also read about many of our podcast guests while also getting helpful tips and advice for nonprofits, donors, and professional advisors. Meaningful giving starts with meaningful connections, so please connect with me, Richard Peck, on LinkedIn as well. Until next time, let's keep making a difference together.